It's March and you're already running on empty. Not because of Lent, not because of fasting. You're exhausted because the numbers don't add up and haven't for a while now. The grocery bill, the rent, the credit card sitting on the kitchen table like a silent accusation. You're working harder than you ever have, and still, nothing feels like enough. And the worst part isn't even the money itself. The worst part is that you cannot stop thinking about it. It follows you into church. It follows you into bed. You wake up at 3 in the morning, and before you even remember where you are, your mind has already started running the calculations again. What if I lose that client? What if the car breaks down? What if I can't give my children what they actually need? You are not lazy. You are not irresponsible. You are a person trying to carry the full weight of your family's future on your own 2 shoulders, and that weight is quietly destroying you from the inside out. There's something you need to hear, and it begins with a man who had nothing. Not figuratively, not as a spiritual metaphor. Legally, officially, canonically, nothing. He had taken a vow of poverty so radical that he was forbidden from owning a single coin. He lived in a small monastery tucked into the mountains of southern Italy. He wore the same rough habit every single day. No bank account, no investment portfolio, no safety net of any kind. And yet, that man, Padre Pio of Pietrelcina, built one of the most advanced and expensive medical facilities in postwar Europe. The Casa Sollievo della Sofferenza, the House of Relief from Suffering, was a medical center so sophisticated that it stunned the Italian government when it opened its doors in 19... Built from nothing. Without a single coin to his name, he didn't accomplish it through frantic effort or through sleepless nights hunched over spreadsheets. He used a specific protocol that he practiced with particular intensity every March, the month the Church dedicates to Saint Joseph. By the time you finish reading this, you'll understand exactly what that protocol was and how to apply it to your own finances, your own family, and your own interior peace. If you're tired of carrying your financial fears alone, if you've been gripping your budget with white knuckles while anxiety quietly dismantles your sense of calm, then keep reading. This was written for you. Let's start at the beginning. The world has been selling you a very specific message. Work harder. Be smarter. Wake up earlier. Sleep less. Optimize your schedule, your diet, your productivity levels. Be the chief executive of your own life. Control everything, because if you don't, nobody will. That is the script. And millions of Catholics have swallowed it whole. So you push yourself. You grind. You check your banking app 17 times a day, as though the balance will somehow change just from staring at it long enough. You build spreadsheets, run projections, calculate worst-case scenarios at midnight, and then calculate them a second time. And here is exactly what that does to your soul. It convinces you, slowly and methodically, that you are the savior of your family, not God. You. That is not ambition. That is not responsibility. That is a spiritual trap, and it is one of the most effective ones the enemy uses, precisely because it arrives disguised as virtue. It feels like being a good provider. It feels like being a responsible adult. But underneath all of it, a belief is quietly growing, the belief that God is absent, or simply not enough. St. John of the Cross wrote about this. He called it spiritual avarice, the disordered attachment to security that prevents the soul from resting in God's hands. And the hardest truth is this: the more anxious you become about money, the less effective your actual work becomes. Your decisions get clouded. Your relationships suffer. Your prayer life collapses. Because prayer demands trust. And trust is exactly what financial panic systematically destroys. The culture of relentless effort doesn't just burn out your body. It burns out your faith. And March is when this becomes especially dangerous, because March is Lent. This is supposed to be the season when you strip away the noise and return to God. But most Catholics spend Lent giving up chocolate while quietly running a full-time anxiety operation around their finances. The enemy doesn't particularly care whether you give up Netflix for 40 days. What he cares about is that you never surrender your need for control, because a Catholic who is paralyzed by financial fear is a Catholic who prays less, gives less, trusts less, and serves less. You become neutralized, too busy playing God over your own life, desperately trying to hold everything together, to ever step back and let the real God actually move. There is another way. Padre Pio found it. But to understand what he did, you need to understand who he actually was, because the softened version of his story won't prepare you for the weight of it. He was not a gentle, peaceful mystic who floated above the ordinary struggles of life. He was a fighter. He confronted demons, literally, in his cell at night. The monks in the monastery could hear the sounds. Furniture moved. His body bore the marks. And every morning after those nights, he carried the wounds of Christ on his hands, feet, and side. For 50 years, every single day without interruption, he heard confessions for up to 16 hours straight. People came from every continent, politicians, peasants, generals, and beggars, all standing in the same line, waiting for the same man. He could read souls. He could smell sign the way you smell smoke. People tried to conceal things in confession, and he named them aloud before they ever opened their mouths. This was not a passive man, and yet when it came to money, he was the most radically surrendered human being you will likely ever study. Consider the scale of what he built. The Casa Salivo della Sofferenza cost the equivalent of hundreds of millions of dollars in today's terms. It required specialized equipment, world-class surgeons, construction crews, and ongoing operational costs. It served the poorest region in all of Italy, and it was built by a man who could not legally possess a single lira. When people asked him how he planned to fund it, his answer never changed. St. Joseph will provide. He didn't say he had a fundraising strategy. He didn't talk about secured major donors or carefully calculated projections. St. Joseph will provide. That was the entirety of the plan. And when unpaid invoices arrived, which happened constantly throughout the construction, through the war, and through the economic devastation of post-war southern Italy, Padre Pio did something that will either sound like madness or like a profound lesson in faith, depending on where yours actually stands. He walked to the statue of St. Joseph in the monastery. He placed the unpaid bill at the foot of the statue, and he said aloud, something along the lines of this: "This is your problem now. You are the provider. Resolve it." And then he walked away, not with the casual indifference of someone who doesn't care about the outcome, with the solid, rock-like confidence of a man who has transferred the matter to the competent authority and trusts completely that the authority will act. And act it did. Donations arrived from anonymous sources. Materials were offered at cost or donated outright. A project that had no earthly reason to succeeded completely and magnificently, astonishing everyone who witnessed it. Everyone except Padre Pio, who seemed almost unsurprised because he already knew who was running the operation. The protocol he used was not complicated. It was an act of transfer. Here is what it means spiritually. When you carry financial anxiety the way you're carrying it right now, you are functioning, whether you intend to or not, as the primary provider of your family. You have assumed the role of God. Not out of arrogance, but out of fear. The result, however, is the same. You are holding something that was never designed to rest in your hands alone. Padre Pio understood something about St. Joseph that most Catholics have quietly forgotten. Joseph was not chosen at random. God, the creator of every galaxy, every ocean, every law of physics, looked across the entire span of human history and selected one specific man to serve as the earthly provider and protector of his own son. Think carefully about what that selection process implies. God entrusted Jesus to Joseph. He entrusted Mary to Joseph. He entrusted the safety of the Holy Family to one man, in the middle of political massacre, a flight into a foreign country, and years of poverty and concealment. And Joseph never failed. Not once. So when Padre Pio placed those unpaid invoices at the feet of St. Joseph, He was not performing a religious ritual. He was making a theologically precise act of delegation. It was saying, you are the provider God appointed. I place this under your authority. Do what you were born to do. That is the real secret. Not a formula, not a magic prayer, a genuine, deliberate, faith-filled act of surrender, transferring the position of chief executive of your financial life from your exhausted hands to the hands of the man God himself trusted with everything. Now you need to understand who Saint Joseph actually is. Not the plasterous statue in the corner of the church, not the quiet and nearly forgettable figure standing behind Mary in every nativity scene, not the man who barely appears in Scripture and seems to exist primarily as background. That version of Saint Joseph is a lie, and the enemy has worked very hard to make it the dominant one, because a Catholic who underestimates Saint Joseph won't invoke him, and a Catholic who doesn't invoke him will keep carrying everything alone. The Church calls him the terror of demons. That title is not poetic. It is theological. Saint Teresa of Avila wrote that she never asked anything of Saint Joseph without receiving it. She was so convinced of his power that she dedicated her Reformed Carmelite monasteries to him. She stated openly that other saints seem to help in particular areas of need, but Saint Joseph helps in everything. The reason he is the terror of demons is directly connected to his mission. He was the guardian of Jesus, the protector of the Word made flesh. The enemy's attack on your family does not arrive only through moral temptation. It arrives through financial pressure, through the exhaustion of debt, through the quiet shame of feeling like you cannot provide enough, through the silent desperation that turns a man irritable with his wife and emotionally absent with his children, through the stress that prevents you from praying, from being present, from leading your household spiritually. And Saint Joseph, the man who protected the most important family in human history from the most spiritually dangerous attack in all of history, is exactly who you need standing at the door of your home right now. Here is the practice. Tomorrow morning, before your alarm has even fully registered, before you reach for your phone, before the anxiety engine in your chest switches on and starts reviewing the day's numbers, you stop. 2 seconds of stillness, and then you speak out loud. Saint Joseph, I place my finances under your authority today. My work, my business, my debts, my fears, I transfer them to you. You provided for Jesus and Mary. Provide for my family. I trust you. 31 mornings. Every single one of them. Before anything else, it has to be spoken aloud, because when you say it only in your head, it stays inside your head, and your head is exactly the battlefield the enemy already controls. When you say it with your voice, something shifts. The words leave your body. They enter the room. The enemy hears them. Heaven hears them. Anxiety will hit you during the day. Not once, but several times. You'll be driving to work, and the fear of the car payment will drop into your chest like a stone. You'll be in a meeting, and your mind will pull up your credit card balance without asking your permission. You'll lie down to sleep, and the numbers will start running behind your eyes again. Don't fight it. Don't suppress it. Name it, and hand it over right there, in the car, in the meeting, in the dark. Saint Joseph, the fear about the mortgage just hit me. It's yours now. I'm stepping away. And then you actually step away in your mind. You set it down, and you turn your back. You do not pick it back up. This is a skill that gets built through repetition. The first week, you'll pick it back up 30 seconds after setting it down. That's fine. Set it down again. The second week, you'll manage 5 minutes. Keep going. By the end of March, you'll notice something that genuinely surprises you. The fear visits less often, because the enemy eventually stops sending a weapon that keeps getting disarmed. One final step, and do not skip it. On the last evening of March, take a pen and a piece of paper. Write down one specific financial fear you handed over this month, the one that cost you the most to release. Put a date on it, fold it, and put it in a drawer. In 6 months, open it. What you read will stop you cold. Not because everything has been resolved, but because you will see, written in your own handwriting, how much of what terrified you God quietly handled. You were never designed to do this alone. The relentless grinding, the obsession, the 3 a.m. calculations, the desperate grip on your family's future. None of that was God's design for you. That is not strength. That is a man trying to play a role he was never assigned, and it is costing him his peace, his presence, and his life of prayer. Padre Pio, a man with nothing, built something that outlived him by decades and still serves thousands of patients today. He did it by understanding one thing with absolute clarity. God is the provider. Saint Joseph is the protector. My job is to work, to pray honestly, and to get out of the way. Start tomorrow morning, out loud. One sentence. Saint Joseph, this is yours.